this is Sarah, the Catholic Homemaker. Today I wanted to share with you my family and I's experience with COVID and how we dealt with it naturally, how we got over it. First of all, welcome to my channel, and if you are new, please consider subscribing to my channel so we can continue to grow this community. Also hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Hit the notification bell for all notifications so you know when I post, which is every Monday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Also consider sharing and commenting below if you have gotten over COVID naturally or with drugs even. Just let me know what your experience is, and maybe people that you know as well. I'd love to hear about it below. And that's why I named this video a little differently, just because I know that YouTube has censored many videos, so I just wasn't quite sure what to name it without being censored about it. So again, this is my family and I's experience. I'm not giving medical advice to anybody, but I just wanted to share our experience and what we did and how it worked for us. So I'm going to be reading from some of my notes just so that I get everything accurate. So my husband was the first one to start to get symptoms, and initially he thought it might be COVID because our neighbor said that they were getting tested for it. So we're like, oh, he might have it too, because he was starting to come down with some symptoms, but the neighbor tested negative for it. So I was like, oh, you're fine from it. This is something else. And so my husband thought he was having a sinus infection, but it turns out it was not. The weird thing is that I and my daughters, we did not get any sort of symptoms. We did not start getting sick until 6 days later from his symptoms. So I'm like, I don't know why it took so long for us to actually get sick, but that's how it worked. So my oldest daughter started to complain. It was like, okay, my husband had gotten sick the previous Friday. The following Thursday, she started to complain that she was very tired. She's like, oh, my throat hurts. I'm trying to remember exactly. It had something to do with her throat, or she was coughing. I was like, oh, you're probably fine. And she looked tired all day. She was like, I'm just so tired. And we were doing that through homeschool. She's like, because I'm just so tired, or I'm so bored. It's like just the way she expressed herself. And her eyes, they were super droopy by the afternoon. And I was starting to feel bad myself too. I was like, I didn't know that I was sick until later in the day when I started to get more symptoms. But I felt a little warm, and so did my daughter. We both ended up having fevers, especially that night. And my head was hurting pretty badly by the afternoon and the end of the day. That was like probably the worst symptom that I was having, was my head was hurting. I'm going to take a look at my notes here because I don't quite remember everything. Okay, that's what it was. My daughter complained of mucus. She didn't say her throat hurt. She said she had mucus in her throat. I'm like, oh, you're probably fine. I just thought it might be allergies or something. And later on, she expressed that her throat was hurting. Like, I had to kind of ask her about that. So as you can see, it was kind of very mild for her. She did feel warm and feverish, as I said. I felt similar to her. I started to feel a little mucus in my throat as well. That night, I know I was very cold when I went to bed. And then by sometime in the middle of the night, I was like really sweating badly. Not quite sweating, but like I was just very hot, and I wanted to kick all the blankets off, but I also wanted to keep them on at the same time because I was still cold. It was just like a weird feeling. I also had a little cough and some congestion, and some of these symptoms persisted for the next couple of days. But the next day for us, Friday, that was day 2 of her symptoms. My youngest, she got some congestion in her nose. And other than that, I think she did have a little bit of a fever. She felt a little warm that day, but other than that, those were her only symptoms. And then they pretty much disappeared the next day. My oldest daughter, she was so much better the next day, Friday. It was almost like she wasn't sick. So both of my daughters, like, they got COVID very mild. Around that time is when my husband got tested, and he tested positive. He has gotten 5 other tests over the past year and a half or so, and he's always tested negative. So this is the first time he actually tested positive, and we just assumed we had all the same thing as him because he had the same symptoms as us, fever and all. And yeah, the worst symptoms for me were probably my fever initially and my headache. My headache was just so bad, especially the first day. And my symptoms improved gradually each day because of the treatment I was doing for myself. The thing that my husband did the most was just sleeping. He did a lot of sleeping, and I think that's what healed him the most, was all the sleeping. So let me just tell you what I started to do, because I didn't realize what I had the first day, but I knew that I was sick. I got a little bit of vitamin D. I went outside for a little bit, but I just wasn't feeling very well, so I just didn't want to stand outside for very long. But I probably should have, because the next couple of days I was out in the sun much longer, 30 minutes to an hour, I would say. And the longer I stayed out in the sun, the better I felt. And I was in direct sunlight with no clouds and anything. And it just was giving me so much energy, actually making my headache go away, believe it or not. I later on talked to my homeopath about this, and he was like, oh, that's strange, because most people who go out in the sun, they get a headache from the sun. Their headache doesn't go away. So the first day I took some extra vitamin C. I probably didn't take as much as I should have, because I normally take 4 grams a day. I take mega doses of vitamin C because of Linus Pauling and also Dr. Klenner's research on that. So 4 grams is kind of the minimum or the base value that people do. But I think I only increased to 6 grams. So I think I really could have done more. I just wasn't really feeling that well, and I really should have done a lot more. I think that would have improved me a lot more, because it did make me feel a little better taking it. Also, I took zinc, but again, I don't think I took enough on the first day, because it made a little bit of a difference, but it was day 2 and 3, I really stepped up the dosage, and I could feel the difference when I was taking zinc and vitamin C on days 2 and 3. It was making me feel better after taking it. So also, starting from the first day, I took elderberry syrup and gave it to my daughters. I also gave them some vitamin C, and I can't remember if I gave them zinc or not. That's kind of harder to get them to take because it's so metallic. It's hard as an adult for me to take it. I'll show you which brand we have, the Trace one. My husband did take some vitamin D drops. He was taking zinc, vitamin C, and vitamin D as well, but I was getting my vitamin D from the sun. And I was also doing nasal rinses with this Med, and that definitely helped with my congestion. And this is the brand of vitamin C, Revitalized Wellness, that I get. But also I was drinking bone broth the first day, and I had ginger tea with honey, and I also had some fermented honey garlic, homemade fermented honey garlic. So I think all these things definitely helped me, but by the third day, I ended up calling our homeopath because I still was not better. And my mom was suggesting to me, like, if it actually is COVID, you want to get on top of it. You don't want to just let it linger like this. And so that I think is the absolute key for a lot of people with COVID. I think the way it has been handled is that people really need to get early treatment for it, and the people who do get early treatment for it do much better than the people who get treatment like days and days later, even like over a week later. Like a lot of the times people are already having trouble breathing, so I just think it's so important to treat it very early. And so the third day, even though I was like gradually improving every day, I wanted to improve a lot faster than I was. So I called our homeopath, and he advised me to take 1 dose of phosphorus 200C. Now, one thing to keep in mind about homeopathy is that it can be very individual. And I go to a homeopath who practices classical homeopathy. So he does not give blanket recommendations to people. So even though that is what he recommended for me to take, that might not be the right remedy for you if you get COVID, because your symptoms might be different from mine. They might be presenting differently than they presented for me. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But based on what I shared with you, you could make the judgment to see if you had the same symptoms as me, or if you have the same symptoms as me. I'm just sharing my experience. But I definitely would recommend going to a classical homeopath for your acute symptoms, and they can definitely help you with that. I've had great success in my family, especially with acute care. It's usually very good for acute care. Just very fast results is what I mean. So the chronic care, depending on like how sick you are, sometimes it can take a while to get really good results. So it does take some patience. But with acute care, I've seen results very quickly if you're getting the right remedy. So he told me to take 1 dose of that. Within 30 minutes, I would say, of taking it, I was already feeling more energetic. I was like, something lifted in me. I was like, I'm feeling like I can do a lot more, because I was pretty tired from COVID. And then like within a few hours, I was feeling so much better. I was like, wow, I felt like 90% better within 3 hours. I was like, this is crazy. I'm almost feeling back to my normal self. And so he told me, don't take more than 3 doses of phosphorus 200C within a 24-hour period. So he said, this was around 3 p.m. when I took it on Saturday. And he said, like, take 1 now. So I did. And he said, at bedtime, if things are starting to worsen again or stagnate, then you can take another dose. And in the morning, the same thing. If things are starting to stagnate again, take another dose. So I took another dose, I think it was that night or that morning. And then the following evening, Sunday night, I took another dose. And then, I took a 4th dose at some point. I'm trying to remember in my notes where it is. Okay, yeah, so I took 2 doses that first day, 1 the next night, and then 1 last dose the following night. So I took the last dose Monday night. But then I started to feel what must have been some pretty bad brain fog. I couldn't exactly describe what it was happening in my head, but it was like there was some sort of blockage in my head that did not feel normal. Like I couldn't quite function after that, and I was like, I was feeling better, but now like something's getting worse again. And I wrote, and I started to have more coughing. So I wrote to our homeopath, and he told me that I took phosphorus too many times. I was like, oh. And sure enough, I stopped taking it, and my brain fog started to dissipate. And I talked with him again the following Friday. So that would be like day 8 after my symptoms. And I had some lingering symptoms, a cough and some congestion. And he suggested taking 1 dose of sulfur 30C because it helps with a cold that is not going away. So it did help me taking that 1 dose. And I would say that I still have like a lingering cough here and there, but it's been like weeks after I have been sick. So I am definitely past the contagious period. But we'll see. Well, he changed my chronic remedy. I started taking a new chronic remedy, and that's helping the coughing to go away. So like sometimes if I take too much of it, it makes it come back, but then if I back off of it, the coughing dissipates. So I guess it's just something that is going to take a little longer to go away. My husband, the only remaining symptoms he has is a little bit of fatigue, and I do have a homeopathic consult set up for him. It was actually supposed to be like last week, but it just didn't end up working out, and the only opening she had was for the following month, so he's just gonna have to wait. Unfortunately, she's an MD homeopath and she's very busy, I guess. So anyway, one other thing I wanted to share before I leave. There is a protocol with Integrative Medicine a friend of mine shared with me, and I will link to the website below. But the protocol is you take vitamin D3, you take 4,000 IUs daily, vitamin C, liposomal or ascorbic acid, 1,000 milligrams a day. Now I would say I think you need to take a lot more vitamin C than that, but this is just their protocol. Quercetin, 250 milligrams 2 times a day, zinc, 100 milligrams a day, nasal rinse, or neti pot, and gargling with hydrogen peroxide. And this is the hydrogen peroxide that I have. It's a 3% solution. And there are doctors out there that have shared their protocol with using hydrogen peroxide with a nebulizer, but you're actually further diluting the hydrogen peroxide. And then my friend also shared with me that some people find it helpful to take 10 milligrams of melatonin at bedtime. Now, I am very, very careful about using melatonin. I've only taken it 1 time because my husband happened to have it on hand, and he said, I was like in the middle of the night and I couldn't sleep, and he's like, just take some. And I was just like, whatever, I just didn't have like a fight in me, and I was like, okay, I'll take some, because he told me to take like half a gummy or something. It wasn't very much, but that's up to you, or you can consult with your doctor or practitioner about this. But I just wanted to share that protocol with you, share my family's experience. I hope you found it to be helpful, and hopefully people will be able to see this information without it being censored, because that's all I'm trying to do, is just share our experience so that people can find out this information, because I know a lot of information is being censored and hidden, and it's really not fair, because it's not fair for other people to decide what you have the right to know or not right to know. It's I truly believe people have the freedom to decide on their own or with their doctor. So let me know in the comments your experience. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you have a great week, and may God bless you and your family.